Java interview preparation, get at least 70% questions in interview. Java topics, 123 questions and answers, page no. Introduction 1. Core Java questions and answers 2. Collection framework questions and answers 9. Advanced Java questions and answers 10. RESTful services question and answer 13. MultiThreading questions and answers 16. Spring questions and answers 20. Hibernate questions and answers 28. Database questions and answers 30. Miscellaneous questions and answers 31. Java 8 features 32. Introduction. Professional details. I am, your name, and my qualification is, your qualification, in, your branch/stream. Currently I am working as, your designation, in, your company name. Experience and skills. I have more than, your experience in years experience in Java, Spring, Hibernate, RESTful services, Apache Tomcat, unit testing, MySQL and etc. I have a good knowledge of Spring MVC web application development. I have worked in different domain like supply chain management, SCM, logistics, and services domain. Roles and responsibilities. I have worked on Agile methodology and participated in requirements gathering, design, development, testing, and deployment. As part of requirement gathering I involved along with project manager to understand functional requirement from business users. As part of development writing well-designed, efficient, and testable code and contributing in all phases of the development life cycle. As part of design ensuring application designs comply with specifications. As part of testing interaction with testing team for bug fixing. As part of deployment used Tomcat server to test, deploy, and production migration activities. Projects. Tell about your current project. Core Java questions and answers. 1. How many ways to create object in Java? A. Using new keyword -constructor gets called. This is the most common way to create an object in Java. Almost 99% of objects are created in this way. B. Using class.forName, -constructor gets called. If we know the name of the class and if it has a public default constructor we can create an object in this way. C. Using clone, -no constructor call. The clone can be used to create a copy of an existing object. D. Using object deserialization -no constructor call. Object deserialization is nothing but creating an object from its serialized form. Two. What is constructor? Constructor is just like a method that is used to initialize the state of an object. It is invoked at the time of object creation. Generally constructors are for initializing non-static members of particular class with respect to object. 3. What is static method? A static method belongs to the class rather than object of a class. A static method can be invoked without the need for creating an instance of a class. Static method can access static data member and can change the value of it. Four. Can we execute a program without main method? Yes, one of the way is static block and it is executed before main method at the time of class loading. Concept of string constant pool and string literals. New string, text explicitly creates a new and referentially distinct instance of a string object. String s equals text, may reuse an instance from the string constant pool if one is available. String literals. Total objects, heap, 2, pool, 1. Where is constant pool memory allocated or heap memory concept? All kinds of objects will be created in heap only. Heap memory is again divided into 3 portions. Young generation stores objects which have a short life. Young generation itself can be divided into 2 categories: Eden space and survivor space. Old generation store objects which have survived many garbage collection cycles and still being referenced. Permanent generation stores metadata about the program, e.g. runtime constant pool. String constant pool belongs to permanent generation area of heap memory. What is covariant return type? It is possible to override method by changing the return type if child class overrides any method whose return type is non-primitive but it changes its return type to child class type. Or, if we change the return type of override method, that is called covariant return type. If overridden method return own class reference. Class A get, return this. Class B1 extends A. B1 get, return this. What is blank or uninitialized final variable and when is initialize? A final variable that is not initialized at the time of declaration is known as blank final variable. If you want to create a variable that is initialized at the time of creating object and once initialized may not be changed, it can be initialized only in constructor. 9. What is static blank final variable and when is initialize? A static final variable that is not initialized at the time of declaration is known as static blank final variable. It can be initialized only in static block. Polymorphism and types of polymorphism. Polymorphism in which we can perform a single action/task by different ways. Compile time. If you overload static method in Java, it is the example of compile time polymorphism. Runtime. In this process, an overridden method is called through the reference variable of a superclass. 11. What is the difference between static binding and dynamic binding? In case of static binding, type of object is determined at compile time, whereas in dynamic binding, type of object is determined at runtime. What is upcasting? When reference variable of parent class refers to the object of child class, it is known as upcasting. Class A. Class B extends A. AA equals new B, / upcasting. 13. What is abstraction and abstract class? Abstraction is a process of hiding the implementation details and showing only functionality to the user. A class that is declared as abstract is known as abstract class. It cannot be instantiated. Interface is 100% example of abstraction, and abstract class could be 0 to 100%. 14. What is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation? Abstraction hides the implementation details, whereas encapsulation binding code and data into a single unit. Java Bean is the fully encapsulated class because all the data members are private here. What is interface and advantage of interface? An interface in Java is a blueprint of a class. It has static constants and abstract methods. It is used to achieve abstraction, loose coupling, and multiple inheritance in Java. 16. Can you declare an interface method static, and can interface be final? No, because methods of an interface is abstract by default, and static and abstract keywords can't be used together. No, because its implementation is provided by another class. 17. What is marker interface? An interface that have no data member and method is known as a marker interface. For example, serializable, clonable, etc. What is difference between abstract class and interface? 1. An abstract class can have method body, non-abstract methods. Interface have only abstract methods. 2. An abstract class can have instance variables. An interface cannot have instance variables. 3. An abstract class can have constructor. Interface cannot have constructor. 4. An abstract class can have static methods. Interface cannot have static methods. 5. You can extend one abstract class. You can implement multiple interfaces. What is static import, or can we call static member of class without calling it from class name? By static import, we can access the static members of a class directly. There is no to call it with the class name. 20. How to create immutable class in Java? Class must be declared as final, so that child classes can't be created. Data members in the class must be declared as final, so that we can't change the value of it after object creation. A parameterized constructor, initialize all the fields via a constructor performing deep copy. Getter method for all the variables in it. No setters, to not have option to change the value of the instance variable. 21. Why string objects are immutable in Java? Because Java uses the concept of string literal. Suppose there are 5 reference variables, all refers to one object, such in. If one reference variable changes the value of the object, it will be affected to all the reference variables. That is why string objects are immutable in Java. How many ways we can create the string object? There are 2 ways to create the string object, by string literal and by new keyword. To make Java more memory efficient, we used string literal concept. 23. Can a class have an interface, and can an interface have a class? Yes, it is known as nested interface. Yes, if we define a class inside the interface, Java compiler creates a static nested class. 24. What is garbage collection and GC? Garbage collection is a process of destroy the runtime unused objects. It is performed for memory management. GC is a daemon thread, and it is used to send requests to JVM to perform garbage collection. 25. What is the purpose of finalize method? Finalize method is invoked just before the object is garbage collected. It is used to perform cleanup processing. What is difference between final, finally and finalize? Final is a keyword. Final can be variable, method or class. You can't change the value of final variable, can't override final method, can't inherit final class. Finally block is used in exception handling. Finally block is always executed. Finalize method is used in garbage collection. Finalize method is invoked just before the object is garbage collected. The finalize method can be used to perform any cleanup processing. 27. What is serialization? Serialization is a process of writing the state of an object into a byte stream. It is mainly used to travel object's state on the network. If you define any data member as transient, then it will not be serialized. What is reflection? Reflection is the process of examining or modifying the runtime behavior of a class at runtime. 29. Can you access the private method from outside the class? Yes, by changing the runtime behavior of a class if the class is not secured. 30. Difference between final and immutable? Final - you cannot change the reference to the collection object. You can modify the collection / object the reference points to. You can still add elements to the collection. Immutable - you cannot modify the contents of the collection / object the reference points to. You cannot add elements to the collection. If ArrayList is final, then you can modify the data of ArrayList, like remove and add operation will work, but initialization is not possible. Diamond operator in Java 7. List equals new ArrayList, / warning, raw type. 4, object obj, list. String name equals, string, obj. System.out.println, name. / compile time exception. Generic concept come in Java 5. List string list equals new ArrayList string. Diamond operator come in Java 7. List map string, list string list equals new ArrayList. We don't need to mention type parameter during generic class instantiation. Or, for automatic type inference during generic class instantiation, you must specify the diamond operator. Java is pass by value. Java is pass by value. We can prove that with swap method in Java program. Balloon red equals new balloon, red. Balloon blue equals new balloon, blue. Swap, red, blue. System.out.println, red color equals plus red.getColor, / red color equals red blue. System.out.println, blue color equals plus blue.getColor, / blue color equals blue. Public static void swap, object 01, object 02. Object temp equals 01. 01 equals 02. 02 equals temp. How substring work internally. String is more like a utility class which works on that character sequence. This character sequence is maintained as an array called value. Every time you call substring method in Java, it will return a new string because string is immutable in Java. Before Java 7. When calling substring, a new string is created with the same char but a different offset / count, to effectively create a view on the original string. It would found that substring has memory leak. Consider a scenario where original string is very long, and has array of size 1 GB, no matter how small a substring is, it will hold 1 GB array. This will also stop original string to be garbage collected, in case if doesn't have any live reference. After Java 7. Instead of sharing original character array, substring method creates a copy of it. New char is created every time, because there is no more offset or count field in the string class. Arrays.copy of range is used to create whole new copy of substring. What is meaning of public static void main, string args? / 35 String hashcode caching use in hashmap. When string hashcode calculate first time, then it has been stored in string object. So next time if string object used it don't calculate hashcode, it's past cache hashcode. Hashmap string, integer ham equals new hashmap. Hm put, a1, / hash method called and code generated. Hm get, a, / hashcode cached return same hashcode. Hm get, a, / hashcode cached return same hashcode. String hashcode cached because string is immutable, so object value won't change. So rather than create object every time, we can cache it. 36 If constructor is private, then how we can create object of that class? Calling a static factory method. Collection framework questions and answers. 1. What is load factor / rehashing in HashMap? HashMap is known as HashMap because it uses a technique called hashing. Hashing is a technique of converting a large string to small string that represents same string. A shorter value helps in indexing and faster searches. HashSet also uses HashMap internally. It internally uses a linked list to store key value pairs. Load factor. The load factor is a measure that when rehashing should be done. Rehashing is a process of increasing the capacity. In HashMap, capacity is multiplied by 2. Load factor is also a measure that what fraction of the hash map is allowed to fill before rehashing. Or default initial capacity of the hash map takes is 16 and load factor is 0.75 f, i.e. 75% of current map size. The load factor represents at what level the hash map capacity should be doubled. For example, product of capacity and load factor as 16 * 0.75 equals 12. This represents that after storing the 12th key value pair into the hash map, its capacity becomes 32. Now, why should you keep many free buckets and what is the impact of keeping free buckets on the performance and hash collision? If you set the loading factor to say 1.0, then something very interesting might happen. Say you are adding an object X to your hash map whose hash code is 888, and in your hash map the bucket representing the hash code is free, so the object X gets added to the bucket. But now again, say if you are adding another object Y whose hash code is also 888, then your object Y will get added for sure, but at the end of the bucket, because the buckets are nothing but linked list implementation storing key value and next. Now this has a performance impact. Since your object Y is no longer present in the head of the bucket, if you perform a lookup, the time taken is not going to be 1. This time it depends on how many items are there in the same bucket. This is called hash collision, by the way, and this even happens when your loading factor is less than 1. Lower load factor equals more free buckets equals less chances of collision equals high performance equals high space requirement. More questions will come soon in collection. Advanced Java questions and answers. 1. What is design pattern? Since design pattern are already defined, it makes our code easy to understand and debug. It makes our development faster and new member also can understand it easily. A. Reusability. B. Robust. Java design patterns are divided into 3 categories: creational, structural, and behavioral design patterns. Creational design patterns: singleton pattern, factory pattern, abstract factory pattern, builder pattern, prototype pattern. Structural design patterns: adapter pattern, composite pattern, proxy pattern, flyweight pattern, facade pattern, bridge pattern, decorator pattern. Behavioral design patterns: template method pattern, mediator pattern, chain of responsibility pattern, observer pattern, strategy pattern, command pattern, state pattern, visitor pattern, interpreter pattern, iterator pattern, memento pattern. Design pattern with real example. Creational, how do you want to create objects? Prototype, a fully initialized instance to be copied or cloned. Example, initial status of chess game. Java.lang.object #clone. Builder, separates the construction of a complex object from its representation so that the same construction process can create different representations. Example, kitchen is a factory, chef is a builder where waiter tell to chef pizza with cheese, onion. Here chef exposed attributes but hidden implementation. Java.lang.string builder. Singleton, a class of which only a single instance can exist. Example, president of a country. Java.lang.runtime #getRuntime. Factory method, creates an instance of several derived classes. Example, in an organization HR works as factory method. Here development team request type of resource need to HR based on request type, HR provide resource to development team. Java.utility calendar #getInstance. Abstract factory, creates an instance of several families of classes. Example, HP, Samsung, and Dell laptops are uses Intel and AMD processor. javax.xml.parsers.document builder factory #new instance. Factory method vs abstract factory. Structural, this design patterns is all about class and object composition, i.e. how do you want structure the software component. Proxy, an object representing another object. Example, checkbook leaf, credit card, debit card are proxy for money and a customer. Representative to order a product. Java.rmi*, the whole API actually. Composite, gives an unified interface to a leaf and composite. Example, file system in operating systems, directories are composite and files are leaves. System call open is single interface for both composite and leaf. Decorator, gives additional feature to leaf, while giving unified interface. Example, 1, adding discounts on an order. 2, gun is a deadly weapon on its own. But you can apply certain decorations to make it more accurate, silent, and devastating. All subclasses of java.io.input stream, output stream, reader, and writer have a constructor taking an instance of same type. Facade, simplifies multiple complex components with single interface. Example, control panel. javax.faces.context.external context, which internally uses Surflay context, HTTP session, HTTP Surflay request, HTTP Surflay response, ET. Adapter, provides different interface for an interface. Example, power adapters. Java.utility arrays #asList. Flyweight, a fine-grained instance used for efficient sharing. Example, dial tone. Java.lang.integer #value of, int, also on boolean, byte, character, short and long. Behavioral. This design patterns is all about classes objects communication i.e. how do you want a behavior in software? Chain of responsibility, a way of passing a request between a chain of objects. Example, loan or leave approval process. javax.surflay.filter #doFilter. Iterator, sequentially access the elements of a collection. Example, next/previous buttons on TV. All implementations of java.utility iterator and java.utility enumeration. State, alter an object's behavior when its state changes. Example, a fan wall control. Observer, a way of notifying change to a number of classes. Example, bidding or auction. Publish/subscribe JMS API. Visitor defines a new operation to a class without change. Example, taxi. Template defer the exact steps of an algorithm to a subclass. Example, a blueprint. All non-abstract methods of java.io.inputStream, java.io.outputStream, java.io.reader and java.io.writer. All non-abstract methods of java.utilityAbstractList, java.utilityAbstractSet and java.utilityAbstractMap. javax.surflay.http.http surflay, all the do xxx methods by default sends a HTTP 405 method not allowed error to the response. You're free to implement none or any of them. JMS template, Hibernate template and JDBC template in Spring. Command, encapsulate a command request as an object. Example, the guest check at a diner is an example of a command pattern. The waiter or waitress takes an order or command from a customer and encapsulates that order by writing it on the check. The order is then queued for a short order cook. Note that the pad of checks used by each waiter is not dependent on the menu, and therefore they can support commands to cook many different items. All implementations of java.lang.runnable. Memento, capture and restore an object's internal state. Example, save the state in a game and undo/redo operation in Windows. All implementations of java.io.serializable. Mediator, defines simplified communication between classes. Example, air traffic controller, ATC. Strategy, a strategy defines a set of algorithms that can be used interchangeably. Example, modes of transportation. Java.utility comparator #compare, executed by among others collections #sort. javax.surflay.http.http surflay, the service, and all do xxx methods take HTTP surflay request and HTTP surflay response, and the implementer has to process them, and not to get hold of them as instance variables. javax.surflay.filter #doFilter. More questions will come soon in Advanced Java. RESTful Services Question and Answer. 1. What do you know about RESTful web services? When web services use HTTP methods to implement the concept of REST architecture, then it is known as RESTful web services. In this architectural style, data and functionality are served as resources and is accessed by URI, Uniform Resource Identifiers. To explain the advantages of RESTful web services. 1. Enlisted below are the advantages of RESTful web services. 2. Can be written in any programming language and can be executed on any platform. 3. REST is lightweight protocol and is considered as fast because of less consumption of bandwidth and resources. 4. It supports different data formats like plain text, XML, JSON, etc. 5. It has loosely coupled implementation and can be tested easily over browsers. To explain different HTTP methods supported by RESTful web services. Enlisted below are some common HTTP methods along with their functions that are supported by RESTful web services. Get, read-only access to the resource. Put, creation of new resource. Delete, removal of a resource. Post, update of an existing resource. Options, get supported operations on the resource. Head, returns HTTP header only, nobody. What is a resource in RESTful web service and how it is represented? In REST architecture, each content is considered as the resource and they are identified by their URIs. Resources are represented with the help of XML, JSON, text etc. in RESTful architecture. For what are the core components of HTTP request and HTTP response? HTTP request has following 5 major components. HTTP requests meaning /work verb indicate HTTP methods like get, put, post, etc. URI identifies the resource on server. HTTP version indicates version. Request header contains metadata like client type, cache settings, message body format, etc. for HTTP request message. Request body represents content of the message. HTTP response has following 4 major components. HTTP response meaning /work status /response code indicates the status of the server for requested resource. HTTP version represents HTTP version. Response header consists of metadata like content length, content type, server length, etc. for HTTP response message. Response body represents response message content. How can we do secure REST web services in Java? We can do basic authentication in web.xml file and can specify which URL you want to secure, i.e., for which role the URL should be accessible, along with HTTP method type. If you are using Tomcat as web server, inside server.xml file, add realm.inTomcatUsers.xml you can create roles, create users, assign each user a username, password, and role. How many ways to implement RESTful services? Spring REST with REST Template API. Jersey, 1.19, using JAX-RS JDK by default provide. REST easy. 7 Can we maintain user session in web services? Web services are stateless so we can't maintain user sessions in web services. 8 What is the difference between put method and post method? The major difference between the put and post method is that the result generated with put method is always same no matter how many times the operation is performed. On the other hand, the result generated by post operation is always different every time. Multithreading questions and answers. 1. What is the difference between process and thread? A process is a self-contained execution environment and it can be seen as a program or application, whereas thread is a single task of execution within the process. 2. How to implement thread in Java and memory allocation of stack. Threads can be created in 2 ways, i.e. by implementing java.lang.runnable interface or extending java.lang.thread class and then extending run method. Threads have their own stack. Each thread runs in a separate stack frame. 3. What is multithreading and advantage of it? Multithreading in Java is a process of executing multiple threads simultaneously. Thread is lightweight. You can perform multiple operations at same time. Threads are independent so it doesn't affect other threads if exception occur in a single thread. What is difference between user thread and daemon thread? When we create a thread in Java program, it's known as user thread. A daemon thread runs in background and it's terminated when there are no user threads running. A child thread created from daemon thread is also a daemon thread. What is life cycle of thread? Explain thread states. / new, when we create a thread in Java program, its state is new. Runnable, then we start the thread that change its state to runnable. Running, if the thread scheduler has selected it, then the thread is in running state. Non-runnable, blocked, this is the state when the thread is still alive, but is currently not eligible to run. Terminated, a thread is in terminated or dead state when its run method exits. Compression of yield, join and sleep, method. Property yield, join, sleep, 1, purpose. To pause current executing thread for giving the chance of remaining waiting threads of same priority. If a thread wants to wait until completing some other thread, then we should go for join. If a thread don't want to perform any operation for a particular amount of time, then we should go for sleep, method. 2, is it static? Yes, no, yes. 3, is it final? No, yes, no. 4, is it overloaded? No, yes, yes. 5, is it throws interrupted exception? No, yes, yes. Six, is it native method? Yes, no. Sleep, long ms, dash native. Sleep, long ms int ns, dash non-native. Why thread sleep and yield methods are static? Thread sleep and yield methods work on the currently executing thread. So there is no point in invoking these methods on some other threads that are in wait state. 8. How can we achieve thread safety in Java? There are several ways to achieve thread safety in Java: synchronization using volatile keyword, using immutable classes and thread safe classes, thread safe concurrent classes, concurrent hash map, atomic concurrent classes, implementing concurrent lock interface. 9. What is volatile keyword in Java? When we use volatile keyword with a variable, all the threads read its value directly from the memory and don't cache it. This makes sure that the value read is the same as in the memory. 10. How to create daemon thread in Java? Thread class setDaemon, true, can be used to create daemon thread in Java. We need to call this method before calling start method, else it will throw illegal thread state exception. What is deadlock? How to analyze and avoid deadlock situation. If two threads are waiting for each other forever, without end, such type of situation, infinite waiting, is called deadlock. Synchronized keyword is the main cause for deadlock. Consider we have two classes A and B and both have synchronized method C, and if we invoke C method inside synchronized method of A and B classes. 12. What is thread pool and how can you implement your own thread pool in Java? Thread pool is a pool of threads which reuses a fixed number of threads to execute tasks. Thread pool implementation internally uses linked blocking queue for adding and removing tasks. Executor interface to create the thread pool in Java. 13. What is callable and future? Callable is similar to runnable interface, but it can return any object and able to throw exception. Callable tasks return future object. Using future we can find out the status of the callable task and get the returned object. What is synchronization and advantage? Synchronized is the keyword applicable for methods and blocks but not for classes and variables. If a method or block declared as the synchronized, then at a time only one thread is allowed to execute that method or block on the given object. The main advantage of synchronized keyword is we can resolve date inconsistency problems. Every object in Java has a unique lock. Whenever we are using synchronized keyword, then only lock concept will come into the picture. 15. What is inter-thread communication? Wait, notify, notify all. Wait, we can use wait method to enter thread in waiting state. Notify, we can use notify method to give notification for only one thread. Notify all, we can use notify all method to give the notification for all waiting threads. Once a thread calls wait method on the given object, first it releases the lock of that object immediately and entered into waiting state. Once a thread calls notify, or notify all methods, it releases the lock of that object but may not immediately. No other place, method, where the lock release will be happen, yield, join, sleep. 16. What is executors class? Executors class provide utility methods for executor, executor service, scheduled executor service, thread factory, and callable classes. Executors class can be used to easily create thread pool in Java. Also, this is the only class supporting execution of callable implementations. Executor used to submit a new task. Executor service is subinterface of executor that adds methods to manage life cycle of threads used to run the submitted tasks. Passing a callable to the submit method is possible to get a future object and use it to retrieve the result of the asynchronous computation. Scheduled executor service is subinterface of executor service, to execute commands periodically or after a given delay. (17) Common method of executors class. An executor service with a single thread to execute commands with method new single thread executor. A scheduled executor service with a single thread to execute commands with the method new single thread scheduled executor. An executor service that use a fixed length pool of threads to execute commands with the method new fixed thread pool. An executor service with a pool of threads that creates a new thread if no thread is available and reuse an existing thread if they are available with new cached thread pool. A scheduled executor service with a fixed length pool of threads to execute scheduled commands with the method new scheduled thread pool. (18) What is optimistic and pessimistic locking? In most cases, optimistic locking is more efficient and offers higher performance. When choosing between pessimistic and optimistic locking, consider the following. Pessimistic locking is useful if there are a lot of updates and relatively high chances of users trying to update data at the same time. For example, if each operation can update a large number of records at a time, the bank might add interest earnings to every account at the end of each month, and two applications are running such operations at the same time, they will have conflicts. Optimistic locking is useful if the possibility for conflicts is very low. Explain with example. The fact that two people want to update the same record at the same time. One do nothing. User 1 reads a record. User 2 reads the same record. User 1 updates that record. User 2 updates the same record. User 2 has now overwritten the changes that user 1 made. They are completely gone, as if they never happened. This is called a lost update. To lock the record when it is read. Pessimistic locking. User 1 reads a record and locks it by putting an exclusive lock on the record, for update clause. User 2 attempts to read and lock the same record, but must now wait behind user 1. User 1 updates the record, and, of course, commits. User 2 can now read the record with the changes that user 1 made. User 2 updates the record complete with the changes from user 1. The lost update problem is solved. The problem with this approach is concurrency. Spring questions and answers. 1. What is Spring? It is lightweighted and loosely coupled. It has layered architecture, which allows us to select the components to use. 2. What is dependency injection, DI, or inversion of control, IOC? It's design pattern based on loose coupling, and in that Spring container create the object and establish the dependencies. So, means we don't have to create objects but have to describe how they should be created. Name some of the important Spring modules. Some of the important Spring Framework modules are: Spring Context, for dependency injection; Spring AOP, for aspect-oriented programming; Spring DAO, for database operations using DAO pattern; Spring JDBC, for JDBC and data source support; Spring ORM, for ORM tools support such as Hibernate; Spring Web Module, for creating web applications; Spring MVC, Model View Controller implementation for creating web applications, web services, etc. What is Spring IOC container? The container creates the object, wires them together, configures them and manages their complete life cycle. In how many ways can dependency injection be done? A. Constructor injection. B. Setter injection. C. Interface injection. In Spring Framework, only constructor and setter injections are used. Constructor injection, setter injection. There is no partial injection. There can be partial injection. It doesn't override the setter property. It overrides the constructor property. It will create a new instance if any modification is done. It will not create new instance if any modification is done. It works better for many properties. It works better for few properties. How many types of IOC containers are there in Spring? Bean Factory. Bean Factory is like a factory class that contains a collection of beans. It instantiates the bean whenever asked for by clients. Application Context. The application context interface is built on top of the Bean Factory interface. It provides some extra functionality on top Bean Factory. What is a Spring Bean? Any normal Java class that is initialized by Spring IOC container is called Spring Bean. We use Spring Application Context to get the Spring Bean instance. Spring IOC container manages the life cycle of Spring Bean. How configuration metadata is provided to the Spring container, or what are different ways to configure a class as Spring Bean? XML-based configuration. Bean ID equals student bean class equals org.educa.firstspring.student bean. Property name equals name value equals educa/property /bean. B. Annotation based configuration. Beans. Context annotation config / -bean definitions go here / beans. C. Java based configuration. @configuration. Public class student config. @bean. Public student bean my student. Return new student bean. How many bean scopes are supported by Spring? The Spring Framework supports 5 scopes. They are: A. Singleton. This provides scope for the bean definition to single instance per Spring IOC container. B. Prototype. This provides scope for a single bean definition to have any number of object instances. C. Request. This provides scope for a bean definition to an HTTP request. D. Session. This provides scope for a bean definition to an HTTP session. E. Global session. This provides scope for a bean definition to an global HTTP session. The last 3 are available only if the users use a web-aware application context. What is the bean lifecycle in Spring Bean Factory container? A. The Spring container instantiates the bean. B. Spring populates all of the properties using the dependency injection. C. The factory calls setBeanName, by passing the bean's ID, if the bean implements the bean name aware interface. D. The factory calls setBeanFactory, by passing an instance of itself, if the bean implements the bean factory aware interface. E. Preprocess before initialization, methods are called if there are any bean post processors associated with the bean. F. If an init method is specified for the bean, then it will be called. G. Finally, post process after initialization, methods will be called if there are any bean post processors associated with the bean. 11. How annotation wiring can be turned on in Spring? By default, annotation wiring is not turned on in the Spring container. Context annotation config / 12. What do you understand by autowired annotation? You can use autowired annotation to autowire bean on the setter method, constructor, or a field. 13. What do you understand by @qualifier annotation? There may be scenarios when we create more than one bean of the same type and want to wire only one of them with a property. This can be controlled using @qualifier annotation along with the @autowired annotation. Public class product. Private integer price. Private string name. @autowired. @qualifier, type B. Private type. 14. What do you understand by @request mapping annotation? @request mapping annotation is used for mapping a particular HTTP request method to a specific class/method in controller that will be handling the respective request. 15. Describe AOP. Aspect-oriented programming or AOP is a programming technique which allows programmers to modularize cross-cutting concerns or behavior that can be logging and transaction management. The core of AOP is an aspect. 16. Join point, advice, point cut. Join point, a point during the execution of a program, such as the execution of a method or the handling of an exception. Point cut, a predicate that matches join points. Then you associate what to do with the point cut, there goes advice. Advice is associated with a point cut expression and runs at any join point matched by the point cut. Or join point, it specifies a point, method, in application where advice will be executed. Point cut, it's a combination of join points, and it specifies that at which join point advice will be executed. (17) What are the different types of advices? Before, these types of advices execute before the join point methods and are configured using @before annotation mark. After returning, these types of advices execute after the join point methods completes executing normally and are configured using @after returning annotation mark. After throwing, these types of advices execute only if join point method exits by throwing an exception and are configured using @after throwing annotation mark. Finally, these types of advices execute after a join point method, regardless of the method's exit whether normally or exceptional return and are configured using @after annotation mark. Around, these types of advices execute before and after a join point and are configured using @around annotation mark. (18) Point out the difference between concern and cross-cutting concern in Spring AOP. The concern is the behavior we want to have in a particular module of an application. The cross-cutting concern is a concern which is applicable throughout the application. This affects the entire application. For example, logging, security and data transfer are the concerns needed in almost every module of an application, thus they are the cross-cutting concerns. 19 What do you mean by proxy in Spring Framework? An object which is created after applying advice to a target object is known as a proxy. In Spring, what is weaving? The process of linking an aspect with other application types or objects to create an advised object is called weaving. In Spring AOP, weaving is performed at runtime. 21. What do you mean by Spring MVC framework? The Spring Web MVC framework provides model view controller architecture and used to develop flexible and loosely coupled web applications. The MVC pattern helps in separating the different layer of the application like input logic, business logic, and UI logic. While making a request, it will go to dispath_servlet, which acts as front controller and is configured in web.xml, deployment descriptor. Based on the request URL and its parameter handler mapping will map your request to specific controller class followed by which method to execute. After execution, controller will return the response view by viewResolver. Based on the output, which page to display is handled by viewResolver. (22) Explain web application context. The web application context is an extension of the plain application context. It has some extra features that are necessary for web applications. 23. In Spring MVC framework, what is controller? Controllers provide access to the application behavior. These behaviors are generally defined through a service interface. Controllers interpret the user input and transform it into a model which is represented to the user by the view. 24. How to configure Spring security in our application? Step 1. Update pom.xml to include required dependencies. Step 2. Then we need to create a Spring security configuration file, Java or XML. In this we creates a servlet filter known as the Spring security filter chain. It is responsible for protecting the application URLs, validating submit username and password, redirecting to the login form, etc. Authentication, HTTP basic authentication and form login based authentication. Authorization support through ACL, access control list. Logout support. Anonymous login support. Remember Me authentication. Concurrent session management. Step 3, now, we will register Spring Security filter chain with the WAR. To register, Spring Security provides a base class abstract security web application initializer that we need to extend, for Java. Make filter and filter mapping tag in web.xml, for XML. Step 4, now, load Spring Security configuration file in our existing application initializer file. And add into the getRootConfig classes, method, for Java. And add initialize it into web.xml, for XML. (25) What is Spring Security features? LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Single Sign-On. JAAS, Java Authentication and Authorization Service, Login Module. Basic Access Authentication. Digest Access Authentication. Remember Me. Web Form Authentication. Authorization. Software Localization. HTTP Authorization. Spring 5 features, OAuth 2.0 Login, Reactive Support, Modernized Password Encoding, Delegating Password Encoder. (26) Spring 4 Security Authorization Levels. Method Level Authorization. URL Level Authorization. 27 What is Spring and how is security mechanism implemented using Spring? Spring Security is a powerful and highly customizable authentication and access control framework. Spring makes use of the delegating filter proxy for implementing security mechanisms. It's the starting point in the Spring Security filter chain which instantiates the Spring Security filters according to the Spring configuration. 28. How to configure delegating filter proxy? In the web.xml we add the delegating filter proxy, which is delegating proxy to automatically intercept a URL with a particular pattern to apply Spring Security filter. Spring Security Filter Chain org.springframework.web.filter.delegating filter proxy Spring Security Filter Chain /*. (29) Mandatory filter name main purpose. Security Context Integration Filter establishes security context and maintains between HTTP requests. Logout filter clears security context holder when logout requested. Username password authentication filter puts authentication into the security context on login request. Exception translation filter converts Spring Security exceptions into HTTP response or redirect. Filter Security Interceptor authorizes web requests based on onConfig attributes and authorities. (30) Is security a cross-cutting concern? How is it implemented internally? Yes, Spring Security is a cross-cutting concern. Spring Security is also using Spring AOP internally. 31. What is a security context? Security context in Spring Security includes details of the principal currently using the application. Security context is always available to methods in the same thread of execution. 32. How is a principal defined? Inside the security context holder we store details of the principal currently interacting with the application. Spring Security uses an authentication object to represent this information. Object principal equals security context holder .get context, .get authentication, .get principal. 33. What's the difference between @secured and @preauthorize in Spring Security? If you wanted to do something like access the method only if the user has role 1 and role 2, you would have to use @preauthorize. @preauthorize has role, role_role 1, and has role, role_role 2. Using @secured, role 1, role 2, is treated as an OR. (34) What are types of transaction management in Spring? Spring supports two different approaches for transaction management. Programmatic transaction management. Here you will write code for transaction management. Spring API dependency. Not good for maintenance. Good for development. Flexibility. Declarative transaction management. Here you will use XML or annotation for transaction management. Less flexible but preferable over programmatic approach. In normal case no code is required for transaction management. (35) Is thread safety provided by Spring Bean? Default scope of any bean in the Spring framework is a singleton, so only one instance per context can be there. Therefore the class-level variables which can be updated through thread may lead to inconsistent data, so Spring beans are not threaded safe. To achieve thread safety, the bean scope can be changed to prototype, request, or session, and for that the performance may have to be compromised. For thread safety, don't use instance variables in multi-threaded environment. Or use synchronized block/keyword on methods wherever the instance variables are modified to avoid unexpected results. Make object immutable, and there are other ways, such as builder pattern. (36) Spring Web MVC architecture. According to Spring MVC, Dispatcher Surflay is the front controller for the Spring Web MVC application, providing a centralized access for various requests to the application and collaborating with various other objects to complete the request handling and present the response to client. Dispatcher Surflay uses the web application context object to locate the various objects configured in the Spring Bean XML configuration file. The web application context is instantiated and initialized as a part of the Dispatcher Surflay's initialization process. The web application context object is responsible to locate the Spring Bean's XML configuration file and load its details to prepare the context for handling the requests. Hibernate questions and answers. 1. What is JDBC? JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity and provides a set of Java API for accessing the relational databases from Java program. 2. What is Hibernate? Hibernate is an object relational mapping, ORM, solution for Java, and it maps Java classes to database tables and from Java data types to SQL data types. 3 differences between Session vs Session Factory. Session Factory is a factory class for session objects. It is available for the whole application while a session is only available for particular transaction. Session is short-lived while Session Factory objects are long-lived. Session Factory provides a second-level cache and Session provides a first-level cache. Four, is Session Factory and Session a thread-safe object? Internal state of Session Factory is immutable, so it's thread-safe, so that many threads can access it concurrently. Or, Session Factory is Hibernate's concept of a single data store and is thread-safe so that many threads can access it concurrently. Or, yes, Session Factory is a thread-safe object. Many threads can access it simultaneously because it implements singleton design pattern. 5. What is Session and is it thread-safe? It maintains a connection between Hibernate application and database. It provides methods to store, update, delete, or fetch data from the database such as persist, update, delete, load, get, etc. Hibernate session object is not thread-safe. Every thread should get its own session instance and close it after its work is finished. 6. What is difference between open session and get current session? Hibernate Session Factory get current session method returns the session bound to the context. Means, if any session is present in Session Factory then it will provide that session. We don't need to close it. Hibernate Session Factory open session method always opens a new session. We should close this session object once we are done with all the database operations. Seven. What is difference between Hibernate Session get and load method? Get loads the data immediate when it's called, whereas load returns a proxy object and loads data only when it's actually required, so load is better because it supports lazy loading. Since load throws exception when data is not found, we should use it only when we know data exists. 8. What are the ways to access Hibernate using Spring? There are 2 approaches to Spring's Hibernate integration. Inversion of control with a Hibernate template and callback extending. Hibernate DAO support and applying an AOP interceptor. 9. How to integrate Spring and Hibernate using Hibernate DAO support? Spring and Hibernate can integrate using Spring's session factory called Local Session Factory. The integration process is of 3 steps. Configure the Hibernate session factory. Extend your DAO implementation from Hibernate DAO support. Wire in transaction support with AOP. Which of the following object is used to create session factory object in Hibernate? Configuration object. 11 transient, persistent, and detached objects in Hibernate or Hibernate lifecycle of POJO class objects. / Transient state, a new instance of a persistent class which is not associated with a session, has no representation in the database and no identifier value is considered transient by Hibernate. User detail user equals new user detail. User.set username, Dinesh Rajput. / user is in a transient state. Persistent state, a persistent instance has a representation in the database, an identifier value and is associated with a session. You can make a transient instance persistent by associating it with a session. Long ID equals, long, session.save, user. / user is now in a persistent state. Detached state, now, if we close the Hibernate session, the persistent instance will become a detached instance, it isn't attached to a session anymore, but can still be modified and reattached to a new session later though. Session.close. / user in detached state. Difference between transient and detached states. Transient objects do not have association with the databases and session objects. They are simple objects and not persisted to the database. Once the last reference is lost, that means the object itself is lost. The detached object have corresponding entries in the database. These are persistent and not connected to the session object. / Database questions and answers. 1. What is index and how to use it? A database index is a data structure that improves the speed of search operation in a table. Indexes can be created using one or more columns, providing the basis for both rapid random lookups and efficient ordering of access to records. The insert and update statements take more time on tables having indexes, whereas the select statements become fast on those tables. The reason is that while doing insert or update, a database needs to insert or update the index values as well. Create unique index _name on table _name, column 1, column 2. 2. How to get second last element from table by MySQL? Select asterisk from categories order by category ID desk limit 1,1. Or select asterisk from categories order by category ID desk limit 2, as X. Order by category ID limit 1. Miscellaneous questions and answers. 1. What is AJAX and how AJAX works? AJAX allows us to send and receive data asynchronously without reloading the web page. So it is fast. User sends a request from the UI and a JavaScript call goes to XML HTTP request object. HTTP request is sent to the server by XML HTTP request object. Server interacts with the database using JSP. Data is retrieved. Server sends XML data or JSON data to the XML HTTP request callback function. HTML and CSS data is displayed on the browser. To explain current project architecture. We have user Spring MVC design pattern in our application. First, explain about technologies in every layer. Presentation/view layer-JSP, HTML, Ajax, JavaScript/jQuery. 2. Persistence layer-Hibernate. 3. Controller layer-Spring controller. 4. Business/session layer-Spring, EJB. V. Data layer-database technologies like MySQL. Structural design. Refer link, https://docs.oracle.com/java-6/tutorial/doc/glnrj.html. More questions will come soon in Miscellaneous. Java 8 features. 1. What is Lambda expression, at functional interface, and its uses? Lambda expression provides implementation of functional interface. An interface which has only one abstract method is called functional interface. It saves a lot of code. In case of Lambda expression, we don't need to define the method again for providing the implementation. Here, we just write the implementation code. To explain Lambda expression syntax and example. Syntax, argument list, -body. Example. At functional interface // it is optional. Interface drawable. Public void draw. Public class Lambda expression example 2. Public static void main, string args. Int width equals 10. // without Lambda, drawable implementation using anonymous class. Drawable D equals new drawable. Public void draw, system.out.println, drawing plus width. // with Lambda. Drawable D2 equals, dash. System.out.println, drawing plus width. D2.draw. Thread example. Public class Lambda expression example 9. Public static void main, string args. // thread example without Lambda. Runnable R1 equals new runnable. Public void run. System.out.println, thread 1 is running. Thread T1 equals new thread, R1. T1.start. // thread example with Lambda. Runnable R2 equals, dash. System.out.println, thread 2 is running. Thread T2 equals new thread, R2. T2.start. 3. What is functional interface and features or single abstract method, SAM? An interface. An interface that contains exactly one abstract method is known as functional interface. It can have any number of default, static methods but can contain only one abstract method. It can also declare methods of object class. Int hashcode. Boolean equals, object obj. String to string. A functional interface can extend another interface only when it does not have any abstract method. Interface sayable. Void say, string message, / abstract method. At functional interface. Interface doable extends sayable. / invalid at functional interface annotation, doable is not a functional interface. Void doit. For what is method interface? Method reference is used to refer method of functional interface. It is compact and easy form of Lambda expression. Reference to a static method. Syntax, containing class static method name. Interface sayable. Void say. Public class method reference. Public static void say something. System.out.println, hello, this is static method. Public static void main, string args. / referring static method. Sayable equals method reference say something. / calling interface method. Sayable.say. Reference to an instance method. Containing object instance method name. Interface sayable. Void say. Public class instance method reference. Public void say something. System.out.println, hello, this is non-static method. Public static void main, string args. Instance method reference equals new instance method reference, / creating object. / referring non-static method using reference. Sayable equals method reference say something. / calling interface method. Sayable.say. / referring non-static method using anonymous object. Sayable2 equals new instance method reference, say something, / you can use anonymous object also. / calling interface method. Sayable2.say. Reference to a constructor. Class name new. Interface messageable. Message get message, string message. Class message. Message, string message. System.out.print, message. Public class constructor reference. Public static void main, string args. Messageable hello equals message new. Hello.get message, hello. What is Java optional class? It is a public final class and used to deal with null pointer exception in Java application. It provides methods which are used to check the presence of value for particular variable. Public static t optional t of nullable, t value it returns an optional describing the specified value, if non-null, otherwise returns an empty optional. Check null pointer exception, conditional action. String name equals study tonight. Optional string opt equals optional dot of nullable, name. Opt if present, name dash system dot out dot println, name dot length. Assigning default value. String name equals null. Optional string opt equals optional dot of nullable, name, dot or else, study tonight. Throwing exception. String nullvar equals null. Optional string opt equals optional dot of nullable, nullvar, dot or else throw. Illegal argument exception new. Optional methods example. Import java.utility optional. Public class optional example. Public static void main, string args. String str equals new string 10. str5 equals Java optional class example, / setting value for 5th index. / it returns an empty instance of optional class. Optional string empty equals optional.empty. System.out.println, empty. / it returns a non-empty optional. Optional string value equals optional dot of, str5. / if value is present, it returns an optional otherwise returns an empty optional. System.out.println, filtered value, plus value.filter, s, dash s dot equals abc. System.out.println filtered value plus value dot filter s dash s dot equals Java optional class example. / it returns value of an optional. If value is not present, it throws an no such element exception. System.out.println getting value plus value dot get. / it returns hashcode of the value. System.out.println getting hashcode plus value dot hashcode. / it returns true if value is present, otherwise false. System.out.println is value present plus value dot is present. / it returns non-empty optional if value is present, otherwise returns an empty optional. System.out.println nullable optional plus optional dot of nullable str5. / it returns value if available, otherwise returns specified value. System.out.println or else plus value dot or else value is not present. System.out.println or else plus empty dot or else value is not present. Value dot if present. System.out.println / printing value by using method reference. What is Java default methods inside interface? Methods which are defined inside the interface and tagged with default are known as default methods. These methods are non-abstract methods. You can also define static methods inside the interface. Static methods are used to define utility methods. Interfaceable / default method. Default void say. System.out.println hello, this is default method. / abstract method. Void say more, string message. / static method. Static void say louder, string message. System.out.println message. What is Java stream? We can use stream to filter, collect, print, and convert from one data structure to other, etc. Stream is functional in nature. Operations performed on a stream does not modify its source. Stream represents a sequence of objects from a source, which supports aggregate operations. Two methods to generate stream. Stream returns a sequential stream considering collection as its source. Parallel stream returns a parallel stream considering collection as its source. List strings equals arrays dot as list, abc, bc, fg, abcd, jkl. List string filtered equals strings dot stream, dot filter, string dash, string dot is empty, dot collect, collectors dot to list. For each and limit, print 10 random number. Random equals new random. Random.ints, .limit, 10, .for each, system.out.println. Map, prints unique squares of numbers. List integer numbers equals arrays as list, 3, 2, 2, 3, 7, 3, 5. / get list of unique squares. List integer squares list equals numbers stream, map, I asterisk I, distinct, collect, collectors to list. Filter, prints a count of empty strings. List strings equals arrays as list, abc, bc, fg, abcd, jkl. / get count of empty string. Int count equals strings.stream, .filter, string is empty, .count. Sorted, print 10 random numbers in a sorted order. random equals new random. Random.ins, .limit, 10, .sorted, .for each, system.out.println. Collectors can be used to return a list or a string. List strings equals arrays.asList, ABC, BC, FG, ABCD, JKL. List string filtered equals strings.stream, .filter, string dash, string.isEmpty, .collect, collectors.toList. System.out.println, filtered list, plus filtered. String merged string equals strings.stream, .filter, string dash, string.isEmpty, .collect, collectors.joining. System.out.println, merged string, plus merged string. Statistics, to calculate all statistics when stream processing is being done. List numbers equals arrays.asList, 3, 2, 2, 3, 7, 3, 5. Int summary statistics stats equals integers.stream, .map to int, x, dash x, .summary statistics. System.out.println, highest number in list, plus stats.getMax. System.out.println, lowest number in list, plus stats.getMin. System.out.println, sum of all numbers, plus stats.getSum. System.out.println, average of all numbers, plus stats.getAverage.